The first BestCare Central Coast Wilshire moment had to do with a veteran, helping out a veteran see value in his life. A frustrated and depressed vet had all but given up on being able to walk again from a debilitating condition. The physical therapists, nurses, and MSW worked with him. He was a big challenge and with motivation and compliance. After weeks of therapy and nursing, he was ready for discharge. A week after the therapist said her goodbye, she was driving the neighborhood where the patient lived. She saw him walking by himself, be able to do a morning walk he so missed. It brought a comfort to her knowing what a huge difference we made in his life. Wilshire moment number 2 is medications to move. A patient with very limited funds was desperately trying to relocate to live with her daughter in the valley. She thought she had everything in order for the car ride over, but had not filled a prescription for an important medication. She didn't have the $5 to pick up the medication. The nurse contacted the 2 pharmacies to see if there was any assistance, but unable to get them to assist. Now this was just $5, so the nurse struggled with not going and getting the medication herself and handing over the money. She tried once more with the pharmacy and was able to have them waive the $5 copay. And last Wilshire moment for BestCare Central Coast is medical complexity, quality of life. One of our palliative care patients and families are struggling to be able to keep the patient at home. There was so much happening for this patient: new trach, new IV, new wound, and all the psychosocial issues. No teaching was done in the hospital. The nurse was able to identify all the teaching and training needs, knowing it was going to be a long visit and knowing that there was only so much the patient and family could manage. She was able to get the family and patient situated. MSW came out immediately, and Aide and the nurse was there the next morning with the needed personal assistance and support and training the patient and family needed. This happened for just 3 days, and the patient and family settled in feeling safe. They were so shocked by the generosity of the nurse and the other staff that they contacted the administration and said, "I would not be here with my wife. We would not be sitting here having time together if it was not for you."
3 moments that came to mind for us at BestCare Home Health. There was one that sticks out the most is a patient, and we all have these type of patients with complex family dynamics. And this particular patient had, it was a mother caring for her daughter, and the mother really had some own psychological or psychiatric things going on with herself, and really wasn't cut out to be an appropriate caregiver for this patient. Very challenging for the medical staff too, taking care of the patient. But despite the fact this patient went into the hospital, came back out to our care, eventually we stopped the care, but we helped transition this patient into getting into hospice so that she can have quality of life and be in a loving, supportive environment before the day she died. And it ended up happening the same day where actually she got into hospice, but she was able to die in an environment of love and support. So that was pretty amazing. We loved our team for that. The second was one of our, I'll call her, one of our seasoned registered nurses in her 70s. She was taking care of a patient, as she does so wonderfully do, and getting out of her car actually before she got into the visit, she went to the home, already had asked to put the dog away. And then the patient opens the door, the nurse tries to go in, the little dog runs down the street. And just to clarify more, for our seasoned nurse, she's got some physical limitations herself, and she proceeded to chase the dog 5 blocks and retrieve the dog to bring it back to this patient who it was her best friend. So that spoke volumes for us. The other is one of our physical therapists who we love to rave about. He is just an awesome, super advocate for patients. He goes above and beyond on a regular basis, going to patients with their doctor visits in some cases to advocate for them. Also, he's been known in certain situations, maybe if the patient is in an assisted living facility and patients just, maybe they're feeling depressed or down, he'll take a couple minutes if there's a piano available and just play a song or two just to uplift them and really lift their spirits. So those are our three.
Our first Wilshire moment. CHF, heart failure. Patients with heart failure, they're always in and out of the hospital. So crucial factor is patient education. You want them to learn how to manage their diet and their lifestyle. So this is one case of a patient who suffered from the CHF exacerbation for years. The patient was constantly in and out of the hospital. Then the patient met a BestCare nurse who had the capacity to communicate well with the patients. In this case, the nurse went through her pantry, teaching her how to read the sodium content in her food stuff. So every visit, it became like a game for this patient and the nurse, telling her, reading the labels and tell me what the sodium content is. So after a while, the nurse would see the patient would greet her, hey, guess how much sodium I found in my stuff today. So eventually, on future visits, the patient learned how to find out what foods she needed to avoid. Her weight had gone down. She felt more independent and in control of her disease. So while under our care, she did not return to the hospital, and that was our Wilshire moment for that patient. Our second Wilshire moment is a patient who had chronic leg ulcers. So it's very hard to heal a patient with chronic leg ulcers. This guy, a World War II veteran, was homebound, had no family, no support, only a neighbor who came by. He was one of those very bitter persons, discouraged and resentful. He would complain to our nurse about everything, the government and so and so. So when our nurse would, she would reply in her positive way. At least it keeps your mind going by following the politics that you know. So his face would shine up. On a supervisory visit, the manager observed that the nurse would perform wound care to his legs. The manager said there was this nonverbal communication between the nurse and the patient. She said there was a way that they had this nonverbal communication between them. I heard it, she said, with the way she clenched his legs, that you matter to me, you're special. So, the patient would laugh and cry with the nurse every time, through their episode of visits. When this guy passed away, the neighbor told our nurse that the care that she provided his friend, the patient, was so much more than just the wound care, that he had someone to talk to and he did not die a lost man. That's what he